everyone, and good evening. Welcome to the Linglobe channel. This time, we'll be bringing you content about preserving the world's languages for the future. Please enjoy it to the end.
Imagine building an empire, but you don't build it with stone.
Right.
You don't build it with fortified borders, and you certainly don't build it with armies. You build this empire entirely out of music, out of language, and, out of the human spirit.
Which is an incredible concept.
It really is. Welcome to Linglobe. Today, our mission is to guide you step by step, slide by slide, through a really comprehensive presentation we've been provided.
Yeah, it's titled The Roma People, A Journey of Language and Culture.
Exactly. And our goal here is to explore the Linglobe materials and uncover the incredible resilience and adaptability of a completely borderless society. So, okay, let's unpack this.
It's a truly fascinating set of materials, I have to say. What we are analyzing today is, well, it's essentially a map of human endurance.
Yeah, endurance and cultural evolution.
Right. We are going to examine a beautifully constructed 15-slide presentation, and it really shows us how identity can be preserved not through walls, but through sheer, relentless adaptability.
And that idea of momentum, it hits you immediately, like right off the bat. If we look at slide one,
It's out of slide.
right,
yeah.
the title slide, we see the words, the Roma People, a journey of language and culture. But centered on the page is this really striking, vibrant visual of a red wheel.
It's a great image.
It doesn't look like a crest or a shield, It looks like it's already in motion.
That wheel is the perfect visual anchor for the entire presentation. I mean, it signals right away that we are not discussing a static, stationary history tied to a single plot of land.
Right.
We are talking about a history defined by constant movement.
So if they aren't tied to one specific piece of land, you have to wonder, how big is this community?
It's actually massive.
It is. And this brings us to the scale detailed on slide 2.
Yeah, so slide 2 breaks down the sheer geographic footprint. We are looking at a population of over 6 million Roma in Europe alone.
Just in Europe?
Just in Europe. But the presence doesn't stop there. There is a vast diaspora spanning the Middle East, the Americas, and far beyond. They are an incredibly vibrant, widely dispersed ethnic group.
But if they are so spread out, living under so many different national flags, what actually holds them together?
Well, the slide outlines 3 core pillars for that.
Right. The first is a historically nomadic lifestyle. The second is their vibrant traditions of music and storytelling. And the third, which is huge, is profoundly strong community ties.
Those pillars are the absolute foundation of their survival. I mean, when you don't have a centralized geographic state...
Like no capital city.
Exactly. No capital city, no national bank, no physical borders. When you lack those things, your community and your traditions have to become your state. They become the infrastructure of your society.
That brings up a really interesting point about identity. If your traditions are your state, how do you visually represent that? Usually, a nation's flag is essentially a receipt for a patch of dirt.
Yeah, it says, this land is ours.
Exactly. But the Roma flag, which is detailed on slide 3, takes a completely different approach. It's a literal map of their worldview.
It is beautifully symbolic, isn't it? It completely subverts the traditional purpose of a flag.
It really does. So the top half is this expansive blue sky.
Which represents the open air.
Right. And a life lived unbound by ceilings. Then the bottom half is the green earth, representing grounding, nature, and all the winding roads they've traveled.
And right in the middle.
Tying the earth and sky together, is that red chakra wheel we saw on the first slide.
Which symbolizes the journey and freedom.
And it specifically honors their deep Indian roots. So if you're listening to this, picture a compass rather than a fence. It's a banner for people whose home is the journey itself.
A compass is exactly the right way to think about it. And if we actually follow that compass back to its origin point, we uncover a massive historical migration.
Which is all mapped out for us on slide 4.
The map here is incredible.
It shows a journey that began way back in the 10th century.
Yes, starting in the 10th century, from northwestern India, that is their geographic route. From there, they carried an Indo-Aryan route through the Middle East and eventually into the Western world.
It's just a massive distance to cover.
It really is. It marks the beginning of a nomadic legacy that would shape a highly unique, borderless culture over the next millennium.
So if this physical journey started in India 1,000 years ago and involved crossing dozens of borders and empires, how did they not just completely assimilate and lose their identity? Yeah, how did they not lose who they were? The answer, it turns out, is perfectly preserved in how the Roma speak today.
Which is fascinating.
It is. That brings us to their ultimate survival tool, detailed on slide 5, the Romani language, or Romans.
Romanus is a really unique linguistic phenomenon. It is an Indo-Aryan language kept alive by an estimated 3 to 4 million speakers today.
Wow, 3 to 4 million.
Yeah, but the usage context highlighted on this slide is crucial. Romanian is spoken primarily within families and communities. It thrives on this profound bilingualism.
Meaning they speak multiple languages.
Exactly. Most speakers seamlessly use both Romanes and the national language of whatever country they happen to reside in.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. How does a language cross all those borders without either being wiped out entirely or just turning into a chaotic mess?
That is the big question.
And the presentation tackles this on slide 6, calling Romanis a linguistic sponge.
What's fascinating here is that Romanis acts as a living archaeological dig. If you look at the visual on slide 6, it shows these concentric circles.
It's like the rings of a tree.
Think of them exactly like the rings of a tree. At the very center, the oldest ring, is the Indo-Aryan core. The next ring out represents Persian influences.
Oh, I see.
Then the next layer out is Greek influences. And finally, the outermost layer represents Slavic and broader European influences.
So as they migrated, the language literally absorbed the landscape.
It did.
You can trace their exact centuries-long geographic route just by peeling back the layers of loanwords. But again, mechanically, how does a language absorb Persian, Greek, and Slavic vocabulary without the grammar just collapsing?
That requires a bit of structural unpacking, which the presentation does quite elegantly on slide 7. It explains that Romanis relies on an agglutinative structure.
Okay, let me try an analogy here to make sure I understand this. The slide mentions stringing individual morphemes together. A morpheme is just a basic unit of meaning, right?
Right, a basic unit.
So is it like snapping Lego bricks together?
That is the perfect way to visualize it. In English, we use separate words to build a concept. We might say, in my houses. That's 3 separate words.
Right.
In an agglutinative language, you take the root word house, and that's your first Lego brick. Then you snap on a brick that means plural.
Oh, wow.
Then you snap on a brick that means my. Then you snap on a brick that means in. It becomes one long, complex, highly inflected word, but you never lose or alter that original root brick. That makes so much sense. The root remains stable, which is exactly how that ancient Indo-Aryan core managed to survive for a millennium.
Precisely. But what makes it so adaptable and what aids that profound bilingualism we discussed earlier is the second major point on slide 7.
Okay, what's that?
Despite this complex way of snapping words together, Romanis generally adheres to a straightforward subject-verb-object-word order. SVO.
Which matches major European languages.
Exactly. It has the resilient, flexible vocabulary-building engine of an older language family, but it operates on a grammatical track that aligns with the European linguistic landscape they eventually settled into.
That's incredibly efficient.
It really is. It is a language highly optimized for integration without assimilation.
Okay, so they have this incredibly resilient language. But if you're constantly moving, you can't exactly carry a massive library of dictionaries and grammar books with you. So how was this maintained?
Well, this was fundamentally an oral heritage, which brings us to slide 8. For centuries, knowledge, history, and language were passed down strictly through the spoken word. So they relied heavily on memory.
Yes, creating a culture that relied on profound memorization. Your memory literally becomes your library.
But the slide also notes modern adaptation, right? Today, it's not purely oral.
Right. Romanis is mostly written using the Latin alphabet now.
However, in certain Eastern regions, Cyrillic or Greek scripts are brilliantly adapted to capture specific local dialects. It just proves that the language is still alive and still molding to its environment.
Completely.
I really love seeing how this looks and sounds in everyday life. And actually, slide 9 gives us exactly that. It's titled Voices of the Roma, and it highlights everyday expressions, showing how they vary by region and dialect.
It's one thing to talk about linguistic theory, but hearing the words really emphasizes the journey we just mapped out.
Exactly. The slide specifically lists a few of these. For hello, we have sastaipe.
Sastaipe.
For good morning, it's devlesa. Thank you is naistuk. Nice to meet you is teavs bakstalo. Good night is lachi rat.
I love the sound of that one.
Yeah, it's great. Delicious is simply lachi. And finally, fun or enjoyable is bakstalo.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, just looking at those greetings, you can see the cultural values embedded in the vocabulary.
How so?
Well, the focus on health, on God, as in devlesa, And on luck or enjoyment with backstallo, you are hearing the blend of ancient roots shaped by centuries of European exchange.
And it's utilized in daily community-building interactions.
Exactly.
So if language is their primary immovable infrastructure, what does that mean for their physical day-to-day life?
Yeah.
Like when you don't have borders, how do you shape your physical culture?
The presentation tackles this next.
Right. This brings us to slide 10, which focuses on the realities of a portable culture.
Because a nomadic history means that material possessions and fixed infrastructure are inherently limited. You cannot carry heavy statues with you.
You definitely can.
You cannot build grand, immovable theaters or museums.
Right. And as slide 10 points out, the result of having no fixed infrastructure is an incredible cultural adaptability. If you can't rely on buildings, the ultimate portable tool becomes the human body. This resulted in a vibrant culture of impromptu performance, games of skill, and deep storytelling that requires absolutely no fixed home.
Which naturally extends to how they raise their children. Think about it. How do kids play and learn when they don't have trunks full of manufactured toys?
They have to improvise.
Exactly. Slide 11 illustrates how childhood traditions transform the immediate environment.
The slide details two specific examples of this. First is a game called Delo. It's a traditional game testing luck and physical skill, and it uses incredibly simple, easily found objects like stones or coins.
Things you can find anywhere.
Yeah, you find a few pebbles, you instantly have a game anywhere in the world. The second tradition listed is rhythm and song.
Yes, a heavy reliance on complex hand claps and vocal games. These aren't just for joyful entertainment, though.
What else are they for?
They are crucial for developmental learning. They are training musicality, physical coordination, and intense community bonding from a very early age.
Yeah.
And they're doing it using nothing but their own hands and voices.
Now, that transitions into adult traditions. And I want to pause here because slide 12 tackles something that might make some listeners skeptical.
Okay.
It focuses heavily on fortune-telling and tarot reading. The slide explicitly mentions palmistry and foresight. I have to admit, to a modern listener, this might sound like a bit of a Hollywood stereotype.
It often is portrayed that way, yes.
So why is this included in a serious cultural presentation about survival? Was this less about mysticism and more about practical survival?
That is exactly the right question to ask, and it's vital we don't dismiss it as a mere stereotype. The slide addresses this directly by reframing it. If we connect this to the bigger picture, beyond the mysticism, fortune-telling has historically served as a crucial economic pillar for the Roma people.
So it's a financial strategy.
Absolutely. It was a primary traditional livelihood, uniquely maintained and passed down generation to generation, specifically by Roma women.
Wow, okay.
Think about the ethos we've been discussing, survival through adaptability. This practice relies on deep interpersonal intuition and highly portable tools like a simple deck of cards or just knowing how to read the lines on a palm.
Meaning they could generate income literally anywhere in the world.
Anywhere.
You don't need a storefront, you don't need a factory, you don't need to own land, you just need human interaction.
Precisely. It is a highly sophisticated adaptation for economic survival in a constantly shifting landscape. It allowed the women of the community to provide for their families regardless of which borders they had just crossed.
That completely flips the perspective.
Yeah.
From a mystical trope to a brilliant, portable economic engine.
It really does.
So if fortune-telling was the economic heartbeat, slide 13 shows us the cultural heartbeat, which is the music.
And just like their language, their music is impromptu, passionate, and heavily influenced by the nations they cross.
Slide 13 breaks this down into music sessions and dance styles. The music sessions are the core of gatherings and festivals, utilizing portable acoustic instruments, guitars, violins, things you can carry on your baggage. Roma musicians create spontaneous, deeply emotional community celebrations.
No formal stage required.
Right. The community itself is the stage.
And then we look at the dance styles. This is where we see that linguistic sponge concept applied to physical movement.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Roma dance absorbed local flavors, but simultaneously left an absolutely indelible mark on the host cultures.
The slide points out that this rhythmic exchange actually birthed world-renowned styles.
Yeah.
We are talking about Spanish flamenco.
And Hungarian zardas.
Yes. I think a lot of people associate flamenco strictly with Spanish national identity without realizing it has deep, undeniable roots in Roma rhythmic exchange.
It perfectly encapsulates their legacy. They didn't build monuments of stone, right? They built monuments of culture. And those cultural monuments were so powerful, so moving, that the host nations eventually adopted them as their own national treasures.
That is a staggering impact. So where does this incredible borderless culture stand today? Let's move to slide 14.
The modern map.
Right. This gives us a map showing the vast Roma footprint in the modern world, noting deep concentrations across Eastern and Southern Europe.
It highlights how deeply integrated they are into the modern European landscape, while still fiercely maintaining that distinct cultural identity we've been tracking.
To really ground this in the present day, the slide provides access data to Bucharest, specifically the OTP airport, which acts as a major cultural hub.
And the travel times are fascinating compared to the history.
They really are. Instead of walking for centuries, the slide details modern flight times and costs. It's wild to think about. From London, you can be there in just 3 to 4.5 hours for around 80 to 250 pounds.
That's incredibly fast.
From New York, it's an 11 to 16-hour journey. It costs about $700 to $1,200 US.
And from further out.
From Tokyo, it takes 16 to 20 hours for roughly 130,000 to 200,000 yen. And even from Sydney, it's a 21 to 28-hour trip for 1,300 to 2,200 Australian dollars.
It really puts it in perspective.
A journey that took their ancestors hundreds of years to make on foot and by wagon can now be crossed by anyone in a single day.
The world has shrunk, absolutely, and their modern footprint is vast, but those 10th century roots remain incredibly deep. Which brings us to the final slide of the presentation, slide 15, the enduring wheel.
Bringing us right back to the red wheel from slide 1.
Exactly. It beautifully summarizes the two core themes we've explored today. First, roots and roots, noting that from its origins in India, the Romani language absorbed the world. It turned relentless border-crossing migration into a richly layered linguistic heritage.
A language that acts as a living history book.
Exactly. And second, rhythms of life. Without physical borders to hold them, the Roma built an empire of culture. Impromptu music, passionate dance, and fierce community ties provide the ultimate home. It is a culture propelled entirely by movement and human connection.
It really leaves you with a profound respect for their journey.
There is a beautiful paradox at the heart of this entire Linglobe presentation. We live in a modern world that is utterly obsessed with borders.
We really are.
They're obsessed with real estate, with drawing lines on maps, and with building massive physical monuments to prove to the future that we were here. But the Roma people prove something entirely different.
What's that?
They prove that the most enduring, indestructible empire a society can build isn't made of stone or steel. It is made entirely of human connection, of art, and of memory. You can conquer a piece of land. You can easily tear down a stone building.
Right.
But you cannot conquer a song. And you cannot tear down a language that lives safely inside the minds of millions of people.
If you're listening to this right now in an apartment or a house, look around you. So much of our identity is tied to the physical spaces we inhabit and the objects we own. Now, imagine stripping all of that away. Reflect on the Linglobe materials we've explored today. Consider what it truly means to carry your entire home, your history, and your heritage not in a suitcase and not on a deed to a house, but entirely in your voice, in your hands, and in your community. Thank you.
Thank you for watching until the end. We will continue to bring you many more languages from around the world. Please subscribe to our channel. See you next time on the Linglobe channel.